these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact Friday. Even on a hot day, good cuppa. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another 5 Fact Friday on this hot and sunny summer's day in England. Too long, can't read. Basically, this chart is not on the list of 5 facts, but I will come to it at the end of the video to explain why I think the housing market is going more and more and more in buyers' favour, further and further against sellers. And what's happening in the economy is feeding into that. But the biggest story this week is about the fact that new house builders, the 7 largest ones, have been getting away with price collusion, price fixing, cartel-like behavior, and are basically bribed their way out of it, and they're going to get away with it almost scot-free, unless enough of you complain, and I can explain that too. In a nutshell, the 5 facts for today are, in no particular order. So, house builders buy their way out of admitting breaking the law with £100 million. Fact number 1. Fact number 2, the Competition and Markets Authority has issued a consultation. It's only open for 2 weeks, even less than 2 weeks now. And I'm going to make sure you know how you can respond to that. If you are someone who, like me, thinks that it's not okay to break the law in order to achieve higher prices and make people overpay. And I'll give you details about that. Fact number 3, the Independent newspaper reported that more than 1/3 of all homeowners regret their purchase. This is important. Fact number 4, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors put out their June survey results reflecting a struggling, stagnant market. We'll spend a few minutes on that. And then number 5, Guardian and other, in fact, all the papers reported that the UK government's debts are swamping the UK economy and doom is looming. Then, of course, after I got the show ready, we got the ONS reporting GDP falling for the 2nd month in a row today. We'll touch on that briefly. But in the meantime, I'm going to take off these silly glasses because I can't really see with them on. And get on with the show. How is everyone today? I hope you are all enjoying the heat rather than suffering from it. And one other point before we get into this as well. The slide, not a crash phrase that I have been using for some time appears to be playing out very much that it is a slide and it's continuing to slide. And I have become much more cautious about what my expectations are because of the number of things that are outside people's scope and outside control of what's affecting the market. But I was right to call the top of the market in early 2022. I did think it would come down faster than it has. Certain areas have come down very fast. There are localized areas where house prices have fallen massively. There are areas where house prices haven't fallen since 2022, but they're not many, and that's mostly the first-time buyer level. But my number one concern is for the functioning health of the housing market, first and foremost. In other words, how easy it is to buy and sell home, how easy it is to move home. And the number one thing that improves that is the number of actual transactions that happen. And although transaction volumes are up on this time last year, they are only anemically up from a very, very low base. And I worry about what's going to happen in the second half of this year with transactions and the housing market. Yes, and there's that story about the Rachel Reeves is going to be announcing government help to buy mortgage scheme. It's that is of little significance. I will explain why. Thank you for Naida for reminding me about that. I'll come to that. But without further ado, let's get into first and foremost. This is not in the facts. It was only announced this morning. It's not that big a deal. It's just reiterating the economic weakness in the economy. The ONS reported this morning that GDP in May fell 0.1% after having fallen 0.3% in April. So there's 2 consecutive months of drop. Just a few seconds on this. This is the breakdown of GDP between services, production, and construction. And it's quite interesting to see the differences. So if you take construction and production out of that, that's services growth going back a couple of years or 18 months, a bit all over the place. Then you put production in there. Production is the thing that's pulled it down, according to the ONS figures. And production has been going down for the last 3 months in a row. So it contracted in March, April, and May. And construction is doing something. Construction is basically bumbling along at zero. But the blue line there is GDP itself. It's noisy, isn't it? It's sort of scrappy and up and down all over the place. Doesn't seem to be a trend there. And in any case, the ONS themselves have basically confessed to how unreliable their data is. So I don't know what you want to read into that. I think basically the foundations of the economy are crumbling. And I'm hearing an increasing number of people saying that they're expecting a major financial event. Although, to be fair, I've heard people saying that going back quite a long time, and it hasn't happened. Although UK 30-year gilt yields are now higher than they were during the Trussonomics era, during the Truss mini budget fiasco. But for some reason, apparently the bond market's less concerned than it was last time. Or the bond market isn't less concerned. The bond market is saying things are as bad now as they were then, but the media is not reporting very much. Anyway, that's that. Right. Fact number 1 of the 5 facts, and this is on the BBC website. All the papers reported it, but this was my favorite headline. House builders to pay £100 million to avoid the legal decision. Everyone should care about this, and a remarkably small number of people actually care about it. Everyone should care about this. Hundreds of thousands of people buy new homes every year. Most of them buy them from the 7 largest house builders. And it is the 7 largest house builders who are paying this pitiful sum. Excuse me. To put it into context, the combined profits of those 7 house builders is £2 billion a year, right? The combined profits of the 7 largest house builders is £2 billion. So 100 million is 5% or 1/20th of their profits for 1 year is what they're paying to avoid legal decision. And by the way, excuse me, that 100 million quid goes in as an expense, operating expense for these guys, and therefore will come off their profit and reduce how much corporation tax they're paying by £25 million. So this decision by the CMA to accept this, in principle, provisionally accept it, and we'll come on to this as an important point next, is actually going to cost the taxpayer £25 million of corporation tax that it now won't get if this goes ahead. And let's just be clear, right? I find this sentence absolutely staggering. The 7 firms have also agreed not to share commercially sensitive information. That's like saying that they have now agreed, I mean, how big of them is this? They've agreed, stop breaking the law. Oh, thank you. That's very decent of you. You've agreed to stop breaking the law at the expense of your customers. And the fact this investigation happened at all, I think, is remarkable. Who decided to bring it up? Why is it brought about? But it was brought about. But the reason that this stinks is that the Competition and Markets Authority brought this investigation about whether or not house builders have been swapping information such as pricing and incentives. And the CMA has decided to stop the investigation in response to the house builders offering to pay 100 million quid towards some affordable houses. And what I want to know is, does that mean that we can all pay to stop a legal investigation, to stop a legal decision based on whether we broke the law or not? Could we all just pay for that? I don't want to be investigated about whether I broke the law or not. So if I give some money, can you stop the investigation? Yes, great, brilliant. Is that not just sort of the ultimate corruption at government level? Honestly, the lack of reaction to this, the lack of uproar and outrage, the lack of media baying for blood, the lack of people discussing this in the House of Commons is why I don't think there's any hope for a political turnaround in this country, because the majority of this country just take it. They just take it on the chin. We get punched in the face by the political classes and the corporations acting together like this repeatedly. And we go onto social media and say how outrageous it is, and that's it. We don't do anything else. We don't do anything else. And we will sit down, roll over, or more likely bend over and take it from them again and again and again. And I can promise you, these house builders will not stop overcharging. And people say, well, what do you mean by overcharging, Charlie? How do you mean they're overcharging? I mean, no one has to pay. It's buyer beware, isn't it? It's up to the buyer what they pay. Yes, it is. But when you've got a first-time buyer with precisely zero experience of negotiating a very large purchase decision, who is on the other side of the fence from seasoned salespeople who do it all day, every day for a living, and are supported by large corporations and government to keep on pumping the prices, and don't have to register the prices that they sold the houses for with the land registry for years, so that there's no transparency on pricing, I don't think it's okay, even if it is legal. This to me feels similar to payment protection insurance claim and car finance claims. At the time, everyone was like, oh, we're just going to pay, we're going to pay, we're going to pay, we're going to pay. And everyone went, well, let's buyer beware, caveat emptor, you should watch out, don't look. But in the end, the law turned around and went, no, it's not okay. And if we don't stop these guys with what is the next fact, right? With it, and we've got 14 days to do it. In fact, till the 24th of July. So left 13 days. We've got until Friday, the 24th of July to do this. If we don't prevent this miscarriage of justice from happening by telling the CMA that no, it is not okay in their consultation, then we only have ourselves to blame. This is fact number 3, and it's related to fact number 2, right? Fact number 3, fact number 2. This is fact number 2 related to fact number 1. The Competition and Markets Authority, this is their website, and the link is below, have announced, and they only announced it 2 days ago, a consultation on the proposed commitments in the investigation into suspected anti-competitive anti-competitive conduct by house builders. They are allowing us a brief window of time to express our feelings on the proposed commitments from the house builders. There they are, the 7 of them named: Barrett Redrow, Bellway, Berkeley, Bloor, Persimmon, Taylor Wimpey, and Vistry. And the proposed commitments are, we won't do it anymore. We won't do it anymore. That's commitment number 1. Sorry, we won't do it anymore. It's illegal, so we won't do it anymore. Number 2, they're going to support the Home Builders Federation. Whatever. They already support each other on that anyway. That's just nothing. Number 3, they're going to pay 1/20th of last year's profits into programs supporting affordable housing. That is platitude and lip service, and frankly, a piss take in terms of how small it is. And they're going to introduce enhanced in-house compliance measures and training programs. Who cares? You should be doing that anyway. That's nothing. If that's meant to satisfy the public, that is wholly inadequate, in my opinion. How to respond? You can respond. There's the email address, right? There's the email address to which you can respond with the subject line case 51392. Consultation closes at 5 p.m. on 24th of July. All right. So fact number 2, they are giving us an opportunity to protest and say that this is not good enough. And in the live chat, at the very top of the live chat, I've pinned this URL where one of my followers who wants to remain anonymous has created a very quick response tool for responding, and it basically builds a response for you. Hang on a second. I want to get that. I can't get the link up. So you can see what it looks like. Here it is. This is what it looks like. Okay. So this is the tool that someone has built, and I'm very grateful to them for doing this. It's brilliant, right? CMA Housing Investigation, have your say. And I will put the link in the show notes of the podcast. And I'll put this in YouTube as soon as I finish the live stream, and everywhere else on X. I'll put a link to this. It's generate your personalized comment to help the CMA understand the diverse impacts of competition issues. Okay. And it's a form, and you just put in your basic information, what your primary connection is. It's a really quick and easy form. Thank you to the person who did this. It's fantastic. Please, everybody, this is really important that they don't get away with this. If they get away with this, nothing will change. So please make sure everyone and anyone that you know responds to the CMA's consultation. Right, enough on that. On to the next one. Next fact. The independent. More than a third of homeowners have regrets about their property. Younger adults are particularly likely to have regrets about the home they bought, according to a survey of the Homeowners Alliance. I'll leave you to read. So just under 48%. Oh no, sorry, nearly 2/3 of homeowners aged 34 and under, excuse me, express regrets about their property purchase. I think that in the whole 3 years I've been doing these videos, this is probably one of the best single bits of data or information that explains why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because that many people, and just under half age 35 to 54, and over 20% of people over 55 regret. That's a lot of people who regret their decision, isn't it? A lot. Basically, between half and 2/3 of everyone between 18 and 54 regrets it. Guys, please let that fact sink in. This is a fact from a survey in the Independent. This means that most people, now, this is not necessarily the fault of anyone. It's a combination of reasons for this, right? But a large part of it is people going in and overpaying, thinking it's a good idea when it's not. And the whole point in this channel is to go, just don't believe the guff and hype that it's always a brilliant idea to buy a property. It often isn't. And it's a decision and a mistake that you can live to regret for years. So you've got to be more careful about it. If you want a home, you should absolutely buy a home. But you need to push back harder against the industry rhetoric of everything's fine, just pay as much as you can, borrow as much as you can, can't go wrong, prices always go up. It's literally all utter hairy plums. Okay? And you should not listen to anything. If you're the buyer, you should not be listening to the reasons that you're being persuaded to buy by the people selling the house, the agents and the lenders, right? You need to be really skeptical, and your skepticism should be reflected in your offer price. And if other people are willing to go and overpay and make the mistake, let them. Walk away. Wait for another property where you can get the one without overpaying. And yes, this is really, really hard if you're a first-time buyer in a really competitive market where you're basically saying, look, we really want a home in this area. We found some nice homes, but everywhere we go, there's a massive bidding war and everyone's overpaying. If that's the case, rent. Stay with your parents or rent until you get a property that you feel you're not overpaying for. right? But go and have a read of that article in depth, please, if you're one of those people. Next up, the RACS published its survey results this week for the month of June. Almost zero coverage in the press here because there just wasn't anything headline grabbing, neither up nor down. But I actually think it's really important. Let me just get my... so we get the right caption screen again. 5 Fact Friday, I can't find it. Never mind. Right, let's get into this quickly. A couple of minutes on. Now, what you've got to understand is when these guys put this wording together, they represent a network of chartered surveyors and estate agents around the country. And those guys do not want anything overly negative. And so they choose their words really carefully. All right? I'm going to make this bigger because sales market activity appears to stabilize. That's the best they can come up with near-term expectations for sales volumes turning marginally positive. I mean, that is just the hardest attempt to just get some wording that makes it sound not too bad. Activity stabilizing, volumes turning marginally positive. Then you read the subheadings. Indicators on buyer inquiries turn from negative to neutral. Okay. Well, that's better than getting more negative. That's true. But when you remember how this survey is compiled, you realize that this is quite thumb in the air stuff. House prices still display a flat or marginally negative trend at the aggregate level. And near-term sales expectations brighten somewhat over the month. So that's just people's expectations. Now, there's not necessarily ever any basis for these expectations. It's just what those agents think might happen. And what I encourage you all to do is to go and have a good look at the regional breakdowns here. They're of pretty modest value, but they're of some value when you just look at the regional breakdowns of everything. I'm not going to go into it right now. I'll let you go and do that for yourselves. But what I do want to draw your attention to is some of the comments in the small print on pages 10 and 11, 10 and 11, where in each area of the country, they ask individual named surveyors to give a comment on the market. And go down and have a look for your area. Right, so it starts with the north there. Whitley Bay, Hexham, Newcastle upon Tyne, and just have a look at what the agents are saying, remembering that they're going to lean slightly on the positive side, and that I think is one of the most helpful hints of what's happening in all the different markets. So here's an example. In East Anglia, David Boyden of Boyden's says, instructions up from a previous poor month. However, demand still not quite where we want it to be. Deals coming through, but solicitors are the major blockage at the moment, causing huge delays, which is why it's really important you choose your solicitor carefully. Now, to compare and contrast what the RACS survey said, and remember, the actual response times are about a month ago. Okay, there's a small time lag in these responses. But let's just have a look let's bring back up this graph that I had at the beginning of the video. All right. So this is from Christopher Watkins' Stats Show. It's on the Property Industry Eye website. And there are two graphs I wanted to point out to you here. So this is really up to speed information. This is a monthly bar chart of the chances of selling your home. And it is the percentage of homes that leave estate agents' books that exchanged and completed, not the ones that withdrew unsold. So this is what percentage of properties that are coming off the books are coming off the books because they sold, compared to the ones that come off the books because they didn't sell and they're just being withdrawn. And this is the first time it's dropped below 50%. It dipped very briefly below in October 2023. But other than that, you're going back to the early stages of the pandemic. And if you look at this trend, okay, ignore this. So that spike there was March, and that was the stamp duty deadline spike. There's always a spike in December, weirdly. There's always a spike in December. So that one and that one, and there's always a weird spike in December. But otherwise, take out that March spike, and you've got a quite sharp downward trend in the volume of properties that are actually selling as a percentage of the total that come off the market. All right. And that's 49% of everything that comes off the market. So that's not including the ones that are staying on the market. So actually your chances of selling are actually lower than that right now. And this is what I really, really want to get across to everyone watching this. I also want you to see this graph here. So this is compiled by Christopher Watkin using 20 EA data. And this is total number of properties for sale in the UK, month by month, going back to January 2017. And you can clearly see there that since the pandemic, it's just, this is, I mean, if you like, you know, I said there's going to be a slide, not a crash. Look at that upward slide of properties for sale, the volume of property on the market, right? Uppity, 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 up. You get this little dip each December, right? Little dip each December. In property market, people take it off for Christmas and put it back on in January. But look at that trend. And we're now up to, by far, the highest level in the last 8 years. The last time you get numbers that high was in the 2008 downturn. Again, my point being, if you are selling, all of these metrics are just telling you that it's getting harder and harder and harder to sell. Now, looking at this data, right? This is actual factual data of what has happened. This is not predicting anything, right? That 49.1% was for June. That's what happened in June. Of the 100% of properties that disappeared off the market in June, only 49% of them actually sold. The other 51% were just withdrawn. Okay. And of the properties for sale in the market, we're now at 758,000, which is the highest since 2008. Oh, but Charlie, okay, could it be a dip? And might the market going to be get easier because of the summer or something? No. Well, seasonally, anyway, it gets harder to sell in the second half of the year, except for a little bit of an improvement in autumn, right? After the end of the summer holidays, schools go back. There's a bit of an increase in activity typically about then. But I also talk to a lot of agents every single day. I hear them talking, I hear what's going on at an anecdotal level. And deals are taking longer to complete in a worrying way. Pipelines are getting longer and longer to actually complete. Fall-throughs are increasing, not massively, not dramatically, but they're trending in the wrong direction. Every single trend that there is pointing in the wrong direction. There are no anomalies. Wow, this is a good one. Yes, we're 5% up on transactions from this time last year. That doesn't mean that the next half of this, that's modestly good news, definitely. I'm always about transactions. But what I'm worried about, just to put my own spin, my own opinion, my own doom and gloom, my own guff onto this, is that I'm really, really worried that this stagnation is going to set in really badly and make it harder and harder for people to move. And that still, most sellers, I've actually got a good one to show you, a really good one to show you. Most sellers are still, despite Rightmove telling people to come onto the market at a more realistic price, everyone saying have a more realistic price, most sellers are still doing this. Right? A lot of sellers are still doing this. So this is a terraced house in Oxford that someone on X sent me during the week. And it went onto the market. Actually, we went back even longer than that, at £550,000 in May last year. And they dropped it 5 grand, and they dropped it another 5 grand, and they dropped it 15 grand in September last year. So literally chasing the market down in little increments after the first 50 grand drop. That's that classic thing. They put it on at 50 grand too high, well, 50 grand much higher than it should have been, then dropped it by 50 grand after 1 month. And then just little chinks, down, down, down. And now they've come back onto the market at £50,000 lower than they took it off the market at. So they're trying, they obviously want to sell. This is not a seller who's only going to sell if I get a certain price, right? It's not that person, is it? And I want sellers watching this to understand this is the most common mistake people make. And these sellers were probably told by agents, yeah, no problem, we'll get you that price. And then they would have looked at Rightmove going, record house prices every month. And then they would have looked at the ONS going, house prices are going up at 6% a year. And they'll go, well, we're not being unrealistic, are we? And now they're listing this at £125,000 less than they launched it at just over a year ago, 125 grand less. And that was in February this year, and it's still sitting there unsold. 6 months later, nearly. And if fewer people made this mistake, the market would come back to life. And I know that this involves a lot of sellers having to get their head around the fact that prices just aren't where they thought or expected or wanted them to be. And I know Lisa Redfern Webb, a follower who's on a live stream a couple weeks ago, talking about how they've been chasing the, this happened to them. They want to know what to do. And I pointed out, I said what I thought they should do. And they said, we can't afford to go that low. And it's heartbreaking if that's your situation and you get to the point where you realize, hang on a second, we can't afford to do what we thought we were going to be able to do. We thought we were going to be able to sell, clear our mortgage, and have enough left over to downsize into a place without a mortgage, because we can't get a mortgage now at this stage in life, or whatever it might be, right? This is a deeply uncomfortable and unpleasant reality. This is exactly what Alex and I, Housing Stig and I, have been trying to warn people of for 3 years. If you need or want to sell, do not delay, especially if you're downsizing. Do not delay, do not overprice, do not chase the market down. Get really brutally realistic and price your house below the price of all other comparable houses like yours. Don't go and look on the market and find 10 houses like yours and go, oh, well, we'll go on at about an average of that price. They're not selling. That's why they're still in the market. So if you set your house price at what the average of all the other unsold houses are, you're not going to sell either. And the moment you get your initial launch price wrong, your chances of selling at all fall in half overnight, compared to if you launch it at a price that gets you buyers through the door, viewers through the door, that end up making bids on it. I cannot express this strongly enough. And I don't understand why, no matter how much I try to spread this word, it literally, apart from an anecdotal trickle of people telling me, thank you for your advice, Charlie, we're sellers and we listened and we got sold at a good price quickly. Apart from the minority of you doing that, the rest of the market seems to just invite in the worst kind of estate agents, blindly believe their valuation, sign a long sole agency contract, and then end up in this situation. Tens of thousands of people every month are doing this. Tens of thousands of sellers are doing this every month. And I know that a lot of sellers watch this and think, oh, right, okay, yeah, I'm glad I know that. Now I know about that mistake. I'll be sure I don't make it. We're going to be realistic. And you're suffering in that scenario from unconscious bias about what you think your house is worth. And you've got to take the approach, the market doesn't care what I think. I must launch my home at a price that will get lots of people through the door. I must launch my home at a price that gets lots of people through the door. And with good photographs, do not skimp on the photography. Your quality of your photographs and the quality of presentation of your house as you get more and more and more competition of other people selling, you have to make sure that your agent knows that you want the best quality marketing of all comparable properties. And it's a mistake if you don't. And it will affect your chances if you skimp and scrimp on photography. Sorry, I got off on a bit of a tangent there. And we still haven't got to fact number 5 yet. Fact number 5. This is in The Guardian and lots of other papers. The UK public finances are on an unsustainable path amid growing climate, debt, and pension costs. Climate costs, debt costs, and pension costs. And actually, there's a better headline. There's a better headline I'm going to show you from the Times. Where is it? Give me one second. This is a really important point that everyone needs to understand, because it's a bellwether for what's going to happen in the economy. Bear with me, caller. Oh yeah, there's that one as well, actually. I want to show you guys that. That'll be in 1 second. Here it is. So this is a post on X by Merrin Somerset Webb, who's a very experienced and respected financial journalist, who says, "I have been writing and worrying about this for years. Almost a relief to see the full scale on the front pages finally, reflecting exactly how I know housing stig feels." And this is the headline: "Rising debt threatens to swamp UK economy." I don't need to go into this. Just ask yourself, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for the prospects of the economy and therefore the housing market and people's ability to pay up, borrow, get paid, keep their jobs, all of these things? Do you think this means that the housing market's going to get healthier or get less healthy? And it's going to be harder to move house. Okay. And the point that Merrin is making is that serious economists have been writing about this for years. Alex Groundwater has been saying on this channel, going back to 2022, why is nobody more worried about the debt levels in this country? They are unsustainable and they're going to bring the economy crashing down. It's a mathematical certainty. It's just a question of time. He's been saying that consistently for 3 years on this channel. Okay. And only now are the newspapers starting to actually say the same thing. And I put this out here because when I choose the 5 facts for 5 Fact Friday, I choose what I think are the 5 most significant newly published pieces of news in terms of how much they're going to affect the housing market. I don't look for good news. I don't look for bad news. I just look for whatever the most impactful news is going to be. And if the news is good, I'll put it in there. And then if the news is bad, I'll put it in there. Why? Because I want people to make better informed decisions when they move house, so that perhaps less than 2/3 of people under 35 end up regretting their purchase. I am not saying don't buy. Always buy a home if you want one, you can afford one. Do not overpay. And I would say that those purchases, the regret of those purchases that was talked about, it will have been for a number of reasons, right? But one of them will have been overpaying. Regrets included underestimating the full costs of buying. That is a really, really good definition of overpaying, right? Regrets included underestimating the full cost of buying or renovating. That means you overpaid. Or dissatisfaction with the location and having to make compromises on indoor outdoor space. London homeowners were particularly likely to have regrets about their property purchase, just over half saying they would now make different choices. This, I think this is seismic data. And yet, There's one born every minute. And the newbies will go with pound signs in their zombie eyes, and they'll go in and overpay, and they'll convince themselves they're not overpaying and end up regretting it. And all of this is what leads to unaffordable housing. People overpaying makes housing affordability worse. So I suspect that we are going to continue to see prices sliding overall, with regional variations and regional exceptions. We're going to see prices sliding for some time yet. Right. I'm now going to go through and look for a couple of questions. Anthony Huey says, I love your flowery mug. There you are. Get an extreme close-up of my flowery mug. I love my flowery mug too. There we are. Now, Naida Afzal asks, Charlie, this first-time buyer Help to Buy, how will this affect the market? So Rachel Reeves has, I've actually got this story here, so I'll put it up on the screen. Rachel Reeves has announced, or apparently will be announcing next week, that, happy smiling face there. Chancellor to relaunch mortgage guarantee scheme for first-time buyers. Expected to confirm that freedom to buy is being introduced to help first-time buyers on a permanent basis. So all this is doing, I think I'm right in saying, I haven't verified this, it is making permanent the existing temporary support for certain first-time buyers getting a mortgage with a 5% deposit, 95% mortgage, where the government guarantees it. But as it's reported here, the numbers are very, very small. So it's not going to move the needle, right? What was it? Nationwide said it could mean lend 10,000 more first-time buyers. That's not a lot. You know, when last year there were 540,000 first-time buyers, it's not enough to move the needle, right? Every little bit helps. And this is not going to move the needle on price or transaction volumes. So it's not really a headline. That's why I didn't include it in this week's 5 Fact Friday. SG says, first-time buyers market is booming. I know 4 people who have bought first time in the past 3 months. Right. That's called an anecdote. That doesn't mean the whole market is booming. But it is worth pointing out that first-time buyer markets are always busier than everyone else. But they're not busy enough to offset the excess of property coming to the market. That's why it's, you know, I'm happy about this gradual slide, especially in real terms, of house prices, because it's improving affordability, and first-time buyer prices are gradually improving as wages keep rising. As long as that keeps happening, how long that happens for, I don't know. We'll see. Flat Out says the only reason it hasn't crashed is because it hasn't been allowed to. Income multiples extended to 40 years, etc. Yep. And the bank's forbearance, that kind of stuff, that's all helped a bit as well. It's kind of been it's like a soft landing, isn't it? They're trying to make happen. D. Marie J says, hi. How normal is it to have a premium fast sale plus and pay 5k reservation fee with a £400 legal fee? First time buyer, finding your videos helpful, thanks. It's not unheard of. It does happen. You just need to proceed with extreme caution and make sure that the overall package you're paying doesn't mean you're overpaying, right? I don't like it. It's not nice. It's how they sell otherwise unsaleable properties sometimes. Don't be seduced by the thought of, oh, quick and easy. This is exactly how they end up getting people to buy stuff that you probably shouldn't buy. Kevin Flagg says, we're in a recession and have been for a while. ONS are lying as usual. Don't disagree with that. Carlos says, how were the CMA paid off with that amount? The CMA didn't get anything. I'm telling you what's happened here, right? The CMA has been told what to do. In my opinion, the government has said, you cannot let this investigation reach its legal conclusion because it will result in a flood of compensation claims against those house builders that could put some of them out of business and therefore affect the government's plans to build 1.5 million homes. So someone in the government said, reach an agreement, terminate the investigation. Wilman Lung says there are not enough of us protesting about these injustices. Absolutely right. By the way, guys, I completely forgot. I actually spent a few minutes on Grok yesterday coming up with, I basically said, if I wanted to threaten the CMA and the house builders with suing them for everything that they've done, could you draft me a really strong legal letter? And it did. And it was punchy. And it's basically there for anyone who wants to use it. Here it is. I'll put the link in the live chat. No, where is it? There it is. Here it is. Check it out. I won't go through it now. It's too long, but it's basically it uses freedom of information to force the CMA to reveal what data and evidence they have of this collusion by the house builders. And I just think this, I'm not a lawyer, please consult one, etc. But go and check out. If you are someone who, like me, is furious enough with what they've done, and you want to make especially if you're someone that you think overpaid as a result of this, and especially if you're a new build buyer or homeowner who bought whatever 5 years ago and is now in negative equity, I would be calling a lawyer. I would be asking a lawyer. I'd ask AI and say, look, this is my story. I bought this home off one of these 7 house builders a few years ago. I'm now in negative equity. And if you can show that the value of your house now has performed worse than other house prices in your area in the same time, and therefore you were arguably a victim of this price collusion, I tell you what, a lawyer worth their salt will make a case and probably get you money. So take a look at that, get some ideas, talk to a lawyer if you're affected. Everyone who feels hard done by this should be going and poking the bear and seeing what happens. Right. Any more questions before we wrap up? Oh, so nice to hear. MS on YouTube says, thank you, Charlie. Sold my property last month after listening to your advice, repricing and market conditions. Wicked. Thank you. The total package says, as you know, I love the slurp and it's a trademark of this channel, but it's too warm for tea. I think I might start sweating soon. You're right. Oh, Roams and Renovate says, I'm seeing a slide in the first time buyer market too. I'm looking all over the UK. By the way, even in Manchester, on that, I'm going to see if I can find it. Okay, yes, I found it. So in Manchester, there's an agent who, I'll get up on screen so you can read it. This is in the RICS report on page 11. It's listed below. An agent called Amin Mohammed at Brett Garden Limited says, Greater Manchester sales have slowed a little for June. It's more of a buyer's market with increased listings. This by no means dictates the quality of stock available. So he's saying it's not because there's bad stock. He's saying it's moving towards a buyer's market. And Manchester was one of the strongest markets for first-time buyers. Look at this one in Preston. Increased market activity, but asking prices negotiable as builders part exchange deals, resell, and ex-rental houses coming into the market as well. All interesting stuff. All interesting stuff. T. Chaucer says, recently had an offer accepted. Congratulations. I'd love to send through further details as your offer email and myriad videos have played a huge part in the success of my offer. I would love to hear the details, T. Chaucer. Always, always, always love it. DM me on Instagram or on X or do it publicly somewhere, or you can email charlie@mhwc.co.uk. I would love to hear it. Oh, wicked. Radiant in red said, email sent to the CMA using the template. Wicked. Empty space says CMA email sent. Amazing. Oh, Mountains of Magic. Email sent. Fantastic, guys. Don't forget, top of the live chat. That's where the link to that form is, right? The link to the form to respond to the building survey. Oh, I'm really, really happy to see you guys doing that. That's amazing. Any more last minute questions before I go? Mind Cash says, calm before the storm, industrial production, trade balance, heavily negative. Once unemployment gets up to 7%, I bet you can't rent, buy, or get a mortgage. Yeah, interesting point. All right, guys. Thank you to those of you who are already subscribed to the newsletter. You got a lot of these at 8 o'clock this morning. You got the newsletter with 5 facts, although it didn't contain some of the extra stuff in the video. So if you do get the newsletter, you should don't miss the video, but that's the URL to sign up for the newsletter, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter. I want to finish up with this. When I'm saying things in videos like, oh, gloom, doom, the economy is looking bad and buyers are regretting their purchases and all that kind of stuff, it sounds like I'm saying don't buy homes, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is generally, everyone should be taking far more care than they are when buying homes. You should be much better prepared. Yes, this means you will lose out on certain homes to people who are being careless and overpaying, but you should consider yourself lucky to miss out on those ones and not be going on the same road as those people. But everything that I teach on this channel, for buyers especially, is about improving your chances of getting your lower offer perhaps, but an offer that you're comfortable with, accepted, even if you're competing against people making higher offers, because you are in a better position to proceed. Now, remembering that video I did a few weeks ago with that London, very experienced London property investor who said that they make roughly 20 offers per offer they get accepted. Now that's a professional doing it, right? The professionals who are buying stuff, they're going out there making 20 offers, only one's getting accepted. That's what the guys who do it for a living are doing. So that should set your expectations about how hard it might be and how many viewings and offers you have to make before you find a property that's good enough to meet the requirements of where you want to live, but you don't overpay for it. And the other tip I would make for buyers out there that's struggling to find something, very few people do this, and it's what I would always do, and I advise people do it when they book calls with me. Go and look at property that you think is outside your budget because the asking price is like 25% outside your budget, if it's been on the market for a long time. Right? And you might have to kiss a lot of frogs. You might have to shake a lot of trees. You might have to go and sort of inquire on 15 or 20 of those. Because among those overpriced properties that are sitting there unsold for 6 months or more, there are sellers who would just love to sell. And if you call up and talk to the agent, they will often go, yeah, come have a look. Especially in a harder and harder market, agents are keener and keener to get viewings. They will often be happy to do a viewing for a property like that where they know the seller is actually likely to sell, right? Even at a lower price. So kiss the frogs, inquire about the properties at higher values that you thought were outside. I mean, literally, if they've been on the market for longer than 6 months and they're 25, 30% above your budget, do not rule them out. Do not rule them out. You might end up going in there and paying perhaps 5% over what you thought your budget was, but because the home is just wildly beyond your imaginings of what you're going to be able to afford to buy. So, it's getting a really great home at a really great price is really hard work. And by the way, no amount of data is going to help you. All this data on the housing market is of almost zero value to you in your actual search. The only thing to do in an actual search is to be out viewing everything you can view, because you will know more about the market for the properties that you want to live in by doing that than anything you can find online. Partly because there's no price transparency. That's what I'm trying to change as Best Agent. But yeah, take the amount of time that you spend researching data online, stop doing that, start getting out and viewing, and you will get there much faster with a much higher chance of getting a better property for a lower price if you know how to look. Now, the savvy sellers who follow my advice are never going to have to accept those low offers. They're going to have competing bidders. They're going to get sold in a matter of weeks. Okay, so if you're a seller listening to the advice I'm giving to buyers, thinking, "God, Charlie, that's really depressing for us as sellers," no, as long as you follow my rules to sell, you'll do very well. If you follow my rules on how to sell, you will sell quickly at the best price that the market's willing to pay for your home, and you will never get more than that. You will never, ever, ever get a higher price for your house now than the market is willing to pay. And yet I still see some absolute dipsticks going, "Oh, well, we're just going to wait then. We're just going to wait. We've had 3 offers. None of them are enough. If we wait, we'll magically get this offer in this declining market where it's getting harder and harder, more of a buyer's market." You know, that's just utter delusion and denial of sellers doing that. But as a serious, so I hope that by watching this channel, you sell faster for more and you buy better for less. That's my goal. And I'm going to stop rambling now, unless there are any great questions. Oh, Rich Jeffrey. Just wanted to say thanks as well, Charlie. We finally managed to complete on the purchase of our house last month after getting some good pointers from you about pricing for selling our 2 houses. Awesome. Jack May, I don't know which chart you're referring to, about particularly poor sales in Wales, and no, I don't know why. Guys, have a fantastic weekend. You can find all of my links to all the different ways I can help you and some of my best videos on my Linktree link below in the description. Otherwise, have a great weekend. See you next week. Bye-bye.